please, yes.
I never know what these things. I think of like for this one, I think about solution oriented, because I think there's a number of things that we can always have problems, but what are we doing to address that?
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And you guys are going to see where this is all leading in a very few minutes. Okay, number 3.
I know, I don't know if I'm allowed to participate, but here I am. But I would say that like part of bouncing back and like being agile is having that positive attitude, because if you're like, oh, let's just do this, then like nobody's going to want to go along with what you're saying.
Nobody's going to want to follow you if you don't have the enthusiasm and the vision, and if you can't convey a vision as to why we all should be resilient and hang in there, right? Okay, I hope that's an accurate paraphrase of what you were trying to say. Okay, last one more.
I was gonna say passionate. If you're passionate, you can you'll be headstrong through any adversaries that you face, and you'll be able to like sort of spread that passion through whoever you're leading.
Okay, so agile leaders have to be in touch with the thoughts and feelings of the people they're leading. Okay, they need to be able to inspire and to be passionate and to demonstrate a vision for a very solution-oriented program, right? Okay, what did I leave out for an agile leader? And you have to be smart, right? You have to be able to have been able to think through some of the consequences and unintended consequences and implications of what you're putting forward, right? Okay, and so agile leaders by definition have to be flexible, right? They have to be able to move quickly and steadfastly. Now let's go into the real fun part. How many of you saw this movie? Okay, I'm not seeing everybody. Who has not? Could you do a quick poll asking how many people saw the movie? John? Or could we just do it verbally? Put it in the chat. Yes, put it in the chat. Yes or no, whether you saw the movie. If I can pull that up. Anybody seeing this?
Yes, they're all, there's a lot of yeses.
Stella and Julie are the two letting us down right now. They've not seen the great Captain America Civil War.
Yes, yes. Civil War. So everyone in this room, figuratively speaking, has seen the movie, right? What was the big whoop about this movie? By the way, it made over $1 billion, it grossed over, net grossed over $1 billion. It wasn't the biggest movie. We know that was Endgame, but it was one of the biggies with the Marvel Universe arc. So what was the point of this movie?
Are you talking like the conflict between like Iron Man and Captain America? Like,
yes.
So if I remember correctly, there's a lot of like damages and there were some like accidental deaths that happened, and so they split into groups because they were conflicted on whether they should have like political oversight onto the Avengers. And I think like Tony Stark's side was like they wanted the oversight because they needed to be kept in check, and then Captain America's side was like work as an individual group.
And they were concerned about the corruption that occurs in any organization, and they didn't want to be like answering, to a corrupt organization. Right. Okay, so we see the two leaders here. We see Tony Stark and we see Steve Rogers. All right. They are leadership prototypes. Now, let's break it down. What leadership characteristics does Tony Stark have that puts him in a unique position to be a leader of this very, very elite, very high-powered group of people? So what are some of the positives for Tony Stark?
His intelligence. He's a genius.
Intelligence. He's a genius. No doubt about it. The man is a genius. He's intelligent. Okay. What's another positive?
I think he's really personable, like more than Captain America. He seems like he's like more in tune with those that he's leading.
Yeah, he's the fun guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to have fun, you know, Tony Stark and fun go together like this, right? Okay, what's one more? What's one more positive?
I'll say resourceful.
Excellent, resourceful. Yeah, you know, he taught MacGyver everything that MacGyver would ever hope to know. You know, he created that whole, you know, Iron Man infrastructure by being, you know, a prisoner somewhere. So very resourceful, highly intelligent. I mean, nobody else is as intelligent, approachable because he's the fun guy. He wants people to have fun because he has fun if you want to lead by example. Okay, so what are some of the negatives to Tony Stark's leadership characteristics?
I think he always doesn't listen to people really well, and he
doesn't listen to other people.
Yeah, really well.
Yeah, yes, no, you're right. Excellent. One of his criticism is that he does not play well with others. Why not? Because he doesn't have to. He has all the resources and he has the genius. He doesn't have to play well with others, right? Okay, that's excellent. What else?
I would say that kind of like what I think Lana was talking about earlier, but like the critical thinking side of things. I feel like he would be like let's just do it, you know, just do something without like consulting anyone.
Okay, now in all fairness to Tony Stark, he can say, let's just do it because he has the resources individually and intellectually to fix it, right? So he doesn't have to really worry about the consequences so much, but that's one of the reasons the Civil War type of thing showed up, because people died because, you know, of unintended, they were collateral damage. So that's very good. He really doesn't play well with others. So that means he will just jump out there without a lot of, you know, counsel from other people. What's another one? I think one more. I think we have one more negative for Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say he's not a team player. He wanted to do it kind of all on his own. Like he didn't even want to join Avengers in the first place.
Yeah. So I see you guys are very into the Marvel universe here. I mean, you know these things. Okay, so he's not a team player, right? And so, okay, but he's brilliant, he's resourceful, he's a visionary, and he can inspire people to follow him, right? Okay, so now let's go to the next. Oh, I just want to point out something, being a psychologist. If you look up the term narcissism in the dictionary, you will see Tony Stark's photo. Okay, Tony Stark is very narcissistic, self-absorbed, etc., etc. Anybody disagree with that assessment? Who's going to step up and say, no, he's not narcissistic, he's just misunderstood?
I'm pretty sure he quoted himself, or that's a quote he said in a movie, said he was textbook narcissist.
He was what?
I'm pretty sure he said in a movie that he was a textbook narcissist. So
Yes. Like I said, narcissism, Tony Stark, but you gotta love the guy, right? You really do have to love the guy. Okay, so now let's go to Steve Rogers. Okay, let's talk about Steve. For one thing, Steve and Tony come from vastly different backgrounds, do they not? Okay, Tony Stark has always been emerged in technology, right? Tony Stark has always been privileged, right? Tony Stark has always had people call him sir. Tony Stark has always been one of the 1/2 of 1%. So now let's talk about Steve Rogers. What are some of the positives to his leadership style? For one thing, was he always in a position of power and authority?
No, not really, because he was the underdog and no one really, believed in him. So he kind of had to work his way up and he wasn't handed leadership,
Yes.
basically.
Yes. He was the 90-pound weakling that we used to say back in the day and that people would beat up on. I mean, he attracted bullies, because he was a 90-pound weakling. He very, very much wanted to go into the armed forces, was rejected, and he went into the super soldier program and became the super soldier. So let's talk about the positives of his leadership style.
he's definitely lead by example.
He definitely leads by example. Okay, excellent. What else?
There's a humble brag about him that I really appreciate. And I think that there has to be that degree of you are respected, but I am humble in how I approach that respect that I've gained.
Yes, excellent. Which is a stark contrast from Tony, right? I mean,
Tony says, I got it. You go acknowledge that I got it.
Yeah, I don't care whether you do. It shows you how stupid you are if you don't, right? Okay, so give me another one about another positive for Steve.
He's really, I feel like, organized. He knows what he wants to do. He's like headstrong. I don't know. I feel like that's a positive for a leader in terms of like not being confused.
Okay, he knows what his objective is, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, one more positive.
He's a good team player. Like, he communicates well with his team members and like lets them know like, hey, you need to do this, or I'm gonna do this, that sort of deal.
Okay, why is he called Captain America? That was not his range, but he's referred to as Captain America because he is the captain of a team. He sees leadership the same way a coach on a football field would see his team. He puts people who are right for that position, for that job, in that position, and he plays to the strengths of all of his players, right? So he's basically a leader who values planning, who values preparation, who values being prepared and thinking it through. I think Caitlin pointed out critical thinking. Did you mention that? He thinks things through. Tony is like, I'm in there because I'm smart enough to fix it if it don't work the first time. Okay? So what are some of the negatives about Steve?
I don't remember the situation exactly, but I remember like the Winter Soldier like wasn't necessarily the greatest, didn't have the greatest reputation, and whether it was kind of his bias that made him choose to team up with him.
Okay, so his personal feelings came into play, are you saying?
Yeah, sorry if I cut out.
Okay. So he was looking at the person more so than the situation. Who has another negative?
He's very risk averse.
He's very risk averse. Why?
Like he'll spend a lot of time planning, as opposed to maybe just taking like timely decisions and actions.
Okay, so risk averse can mean being also protective, though, protective of your resources, and his resources are people. Okay, so he did not necessarily want to risk people. Okay, one more negative. That's a good point, though, John. One more.
I think that he's pretty headstrong and like kind of like stuck in his ways. Like he says like, this is how things have been, this is how things will be. And he doesn't have like the intelligence like Tony Stark does to see new developments and new opportunities as easily.
Okay, so you would say Steve Rogers is old school, you would say.
Yeah.
Everybody else is writing, taking notes on a tablet, and he takes out a pencil and a pad.
Yeah.
Okay, he is, 1940s forward. He's old school. He appreciates the old line of thinking, et cetera, et cetera. While Tony's just the opposite in that, right? He's the tech guy. He is, let's get out there and do it because I'm smart enough to figure it out if it doesn't work. Steve says, my resources are people, and I don't want to risk them. So I want to make sure we plan this strategy and we know what we're doing and that we can anticipate problems and solve them before we go out there. Anybody disagree with my analysis there before we go to the next one? I'm going to give you an opportunity to disagree with my personality analyses here, if you do. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. This is a poll. Who would make the most agile leader, Iron Man or Captain America? And then we're going to talk about why you chose who you chose. So, okay, the poll is up. How many of us are there? There are 14 of us, I guess.
Yeah, only 10 of us can vote this. So there's one more person who needs to vote.
One more person needs to vote, yeah. Okay, we're going to shut down in about, 10 seconds. Oh, we already did shut down. Okay. All right, so the poll shows that Iron Man, according to this population of people taking this poll right now, would be considered to be the most agile leader. Now let's talk about why. Why did 67% of you say Iron Man? And then we'll talk to the 33% of you who said Captain America. But why do you think Iron Man would make the most agile leader between he and Captain America?
I said that mainly because, like we were saying, Captain America is kind of stuck in his ways, and I feel like he won't want to change his plan as much as Iron Man would want to.
Okay. So Iron Man has no problem in changing his plan whatsoever. There's this one scene in Civil War when he was asked what his plan was. They were getting ready to attack, and he was asked, "What is your plan?" He goes, "To attack." I mean, the plan was as they were attacking. What was the plan? To attack, because he has absolute total confidence in his ability to face any problem that could come up from his decisions. Right? He has absolute confidence that he has the resources. Right? So I can see why he would be. You would say he's the most agile leader. Anyone else have another comment as to why Iron Man would be the most agile leader?
Yeah, I think for me, it kind of depends on, like, we'll say like the kind of like agility that's required, or like the situation. Because I feel like if Iron Man's in a situation that he knows a lot about, that he's comfortable assessing, that he would be the most like the better leader, because he can make those decisions and change his plan based on the information that he's taking in. I do recognize, though, that a huge flaw would be he wouldn't necessarily change his plan based on the input of other people on his team, especially if he doesn't like respect them intellectually. I think, like, you know, you see like Bruce Banner has like a little bit of like effect on his plans and thoughts, but I mean, a lot of it is he like Iron Man will be planning around his intelligence. Like, he'll help out here. This is still my plan.
Right.
So yeah, in situations where he's comfortable, I think he'd be better. But in situations that requires input from other people, I think Captain America would be better. But you know, it's kind of hard to pin that down in a poll.
Okay, that's an excellent point. Does anybody want to explain why they chose Captain America as the better leader?
I'll go ahead and explain my viewpoint, or you can, whoever is speaking.
Okay.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say I personally chose Captain America. And I haven't watched the movie though, so it's in my bucket list now. But I wanted to say that I chose Captain America because I'm more towards a leader that led the people that are leading to kind of take control of some of the action. It seems more like Iron Man. It's like he is the one that says what we're doing, how we're doing it, and you know, like he doesn't take as much opinions from his public or his employees or his team or whatever as much as Captain America. I could be completely mistaken. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's a very good characterization. And are you guys curious as to why I'm using this example and what I'm leading up to? Because if you're curious, I'm getting ready to let you know. I want to, now that we've chosen Iron Man over Captain America as the most agile leader, and now I'm going to give you a problem that all of higher education is currently facing. And this problem came up because of COVID. Ensuring academic integrity during the COVID pandemic. Online test proctoring is something that every university, every college, every higher education, and high schools also went to online test proctoring with AI platforms, artificial intelligence platforms, because that promised the fastest, the most agile solution to the problem of academic integrity. How many of you are aware of the problems that have come out from the use of AI platforms in online proctoring? I see Caitlin saying, anybody else aware of the problems that have surfaced, including problems here at U of L?
I have a vague understanding. I know it has something to do with like flagging people of darker skin colors, I think, but I'm not sure if that's totally correct.
Okay, that is pretty correct. Anybody else have a comment on what the problem is? This was an issue, online test proctoring, online test integrity, that had to be quickly addressed. You know, that's the agility part. And the nation went with AI platforms. Now, what are some of the problems with the AI platforms? There is now a senatorial committee that has been formed to look into these issues, because there have been so many complaints of not only racial bias, but gender bias, and also a disability bias that these type of platforms flag. So you get a false positive. Now, false positive means the platform says it is when it isn't, and the platform is ignoring the false negatives, okay? Some students are scrutinized far more closely and far more intently than other students. And the students who are scrutinized more are the darker skinned students. So it's like when you go into a department store and the stereotype is that darker skinned people are going to do shoplifting, so you have someone following you around. Basically, that's what's happening with the AI platform. And it has been so disturbing and disruptive to people emotionally and psychologically that Senator Blumenthal has actually called for a senatorial investigation into this issue. And there have been all kinds of articles published recently about the racial bias in any of these platforms. Now, at U of L, we use respondents. Has anybody here ever been in an exam where respondents monitor was using, where you had to turn on your computer camera? I can't. There are people raising their hand. Yes. I don't know why I can't see the. Okay, how many people have raised their hand to say yes? You're going to have me out, Caitlin.
Quite a few.
Okay, what has been your experience using this software? Using these platforms here at U of L?
I find it really stressful because I have to make sure like it's completely silent, even though like I live at home. And so noises are coming like from other rooms and it has nothing to do with me. And then like I have to be fully in frame the whole time. And, you know, naturally, you know, I move around and kind of think, and that
yes.
sometimes flag me too.
Okay, thank you for that. Who has another experience you would share with this?
I know for me, it's also like really stressful. I typically I end up getting flagged because I like talk to myself when I'm taking a test. So like in the classroom, I'll do it quietly, but in my room, I don't monitor myself as much. So I just talk to myself as I'm taking a test. So I find that really stressful. And then I live in a dorm, so there's always people passing by. So I also get flagged for noise quite a bit, which is annoying.
Which is very annoying. Okay, one more person want to talk about your experiences?
Yeah, I've only taken it like once or twice using Respondus, but it's quite stressful, especially even if you're sitting in a room by yourself. But like sometimes people walk by and then like your eyes just naturally draw into like the movement. So sometimes you get flagged for that when you just see someone walk by. Yes.
So let's talk about the solution, okay, or the problem. And this is really data that's right off the press here. This is a group of 360 students from 4 different biology courses where respondents monitor videos were analyzed. And these are the research questions that were asked. And whenever you see a yes, you know that means statistically significant at least the 0.05 level, which means these responses would not occur more than 5 times out of 100 by chance. Okay, so this is pretty statistically significant. Our darker skin tones are race related to a greater number of priority scores. Yes, because respondents gives you priority scores. So if you are a darker skinned student, you are more likely to get a priority score. And this is at U of L. Our darker skin tones are race related to a higher number of total flags. The answer is yes. Our darker skin tones are race related to a higher percentage of flag time. Yes. Our darker skin tones are race related to a higher total flag time. Yes. Our darker skin tones are race related to a higher number of missing from frame flags, meaning the software says you got up and went somewhere else instead of staying in your seat taking the exam. So getting up implies you went somewhere else to look at a book or talk to another person or whatever. The darker your skin, the higher the number of missing from frame flags. So what does this data indicate?
That the algorithm is racist.
That the algorithm has a racial bias. Now, some people maintain that it's impossible for technology to be biased. And so they poo-pooed this when it first was brought up, that no, technology cannot be biased. It's totally objective. No technology is as biased as the platforms it was used or the infrastructures that are used to create it, and the same assumptions that people have are built into the software. There was a New York Times article that came out last year that pointed out that all artificial intelligence platforms are based on photography platforms. And photography platforms have not changed since the 1940s. So in the 1940s, when photography platforms were developed, they did not include a demographic population that would be heterogeneous. It was a very homogeneous population that went into providing the infrastructure, and those were white males, because respondents also has a problem sometimes with females, and AI does also have a problem with females. So there's just a racial bias in respondents monitor. This has been demonstrated to the point where some universities have pulled the plug and said, we won't subject our students to this because it's giving us a wrong impression about our students, you know? And so what would Tony Stark do in this situation? And what would Steve Rogers do? Let's talk with Tony. What would Tony do if he were faced with this situation? Agile leadership says we had to do something, and we had to do it quickly. So we went with artificial intelligence proctoring. There are problems that are being shown up. What would Tony Stark do?
Honestly, he'd probably write a new AI system and a new software. He would make a new AI system and new software.
He would make a new AI system, no matter how expensive that was. That's what Tony would do, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else another suggestion about what Tony would do?
He'd probably identify the problems with the current one. Maybe
So Tony would go, hey, I've got to get in here and fix this, right? Okay, what would Steve Rogers do?
I feel like he might institute or say like, all right, all the tests need to be taken in like in person, have like a real proctor watching, or maybe not in person, but like have like a real person watching. He
would suspend the use.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else would say what Steve would do?
I don't think Steve would have ever used the artificial technology. I think he would have been really apprehensive about what this technology would have done for the quality of the institution.
Okay, so you think he would have thought ahead to the problems that the rest of us had to discover in real time. Okay, you guys see what I'm trying to do here? You have to be agile, right? And the people who did not jump on this bandwagon were saying, hey, look, you gotta move quickly. But what are some of the unintentional consequences from moving quickly and not looking at something very completely and more thoroughly? There are a lot of students who actually were accused of cheating and were not. And they felt they literally had to change their majors because they felt that the faculty viewed them as cheaters now, and they would never get over that stigma. We know in psychology, we have a concept known as stereotype threat, where if you remind any minority of their minority status and you focus on that, that person is going to have a heightened anxiety level, heightened physiological changes that interfere with them performing at their best in an exam. So darker skinned students are put in a very disadvantageous position when you say, and I'm going to say what U of L's solution is. U of L's solution, in my opinion, puts darker skinned students in a very difficult situation because they are still being focused on. The false negatives mean that the faculty are going to look at my videos and make sure I'm not cheating from a false positive perspective, whereas Caitlin's videos are never reviewed. You see the downside of saying we've got to exonerate these people, so we will scrutinize them even more closely. So the false negatives are not caught in an attempt to make sure there are no false positives. This is data that my colleagues in the biology department, Dr. Deborah Yoder-Himes and her graduate student literally just analyzed this data earlier this week. And the question was, is there racial bias in respondents? And the answer is yeah. And really the answer is hell yeah. Okay, so what would you do in this situation?
I mean, I personally would have pulled the "we just don't need to be using it" thing, because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Like, people, you know, there's so much going on that, like, if someone needs to look at their notes during an exam, that's what they need to do right now. I mean,
Even though
like,
the exam is a no-note exam.
Right.
Remember, and I got it. And in all fairness, there, I've got to paraphrase Taylor Swift by saying, cheaters are going to cheat. Okay, and the problem with AI proctoring is that it does not prevent people from cheating. It just focuses unfairly on a very small segment of the population, but it does not prevent cheating.
I 100% agree with this. I think situations like this have really shown us the creativity of our students and how they have navigated situations. I was like, I never would have thought of this. There's an example that came out of Rutgers in which, to keep their recreational facilities open, students had to sign up to be able to go to the gym. The student in one of their engineering programs wrote code to override the system, so therefore students could sign up whenever they wanted to. So I just like, this is just causing them to be extremely creative and giving them a lot of add-on times in that. But to Caitlin's point, I've rewritten my exams so that they can be open book, but they require a lot more effort for you.
They require, yes. But, you know, and I'm bringing this up is because we're talking about agility and leadership. In the real world, this was the most agile solution that colleges and universities could come to. All of these companies and the top three came to university and says, hey, we have your solution. We are the solution. We can solve your problem. And there was no indication, or a lot of indication at that time, of the bias. But when the bias started creeping to the surface, the reaction to that by some people was that it's not a big deal. A number of people say this is not a big deal, and that you're overreacting by saying we have to change what we're doing. This is not a big deal. So when someone says, how do you feel? Can a leader really empathize with the feelings and the emotions and the trauma that followers are going through, and can leadership at a university or faculty at a university empathize with the trauma, the unnecessarily additional trauma that we may be subjecting our students to? Is that agile leadership to say, no, we're just going to keep going with this program because that's what everybody else is doing? I heard that from people here at this university. This is what everybody else is using, so it must be okay.
I actually got a thing to say on that. I think that a lot of like professors and university leadership, especially if you come from like an academic background, you kind of build up this, we'll say like, experience of students emailing you a day before assignments are done. They're like, I need more time because of X, Y, and Z. And they tell you their reasons and everything. And some of them are genuine, some of them aren't. And I think professors are like the professors that are annoyed whenever a student might lie to get a extension, they build up this resilience and they then get stricter policies, and they might be the ones requiring doctor's notes or funeral note, things, proof of that something has happened. And I think that goes all the way up to leadership as well. Their minds are going to, well, what if the students are lying to us? Or like, what if it's not like what they actually say? And I have a huge issue with that, right? Like, especially this last year, because I know more of my friends in college are stressed out of their minds than ever before. And like myself included. And, like, I don't like asking for extensions. They don't like asking for extensions. But sometimes you just have too much going on. Your mental health isn't there, and you got to ask for those extensions. And when professors push back by like, oh, well, I don't think it's as serious, like, no, I'm not going to give you an extension. It just makes things so much worse. And it's the same thing with leadership making these things, like not believing your traumas are as bad as you say they are. It just adds on to it and makes things more difficult for the people that need the help the most. So I really, really resonated with what you were saying.
Okay, so agility is not always the solution, right? Particularly when you're dealing with people's lives. You have to be agile, yes, but you've got to be willing to modify depending on what the data and the circumstances show you. And I think that's what you've all said. That's what you've all actually said about the importance of agile leadership, that you can very quickly, try to offer a solution, but you're also always monitoring your solution to make necessary changes. And I think that's the point I want to make about agile leadership. The monitoring part can't just go away, because unfortunately, Tony Stark is a fictional character. There's nobody who is that smart, that brilliant, that can just, and the resources, the unlimited resources to fix whatever problem people may have, okay? We live in the real world when resources are restricted. And these companies, these AI proctoring, and I'm on the provost developed a task force to look into this. I'm one of the members of the task force. So I've interviewed several companies to ask them what their solutions are to this problem. Everyone admitted that there was a problem except one company. Everyone admitted that they'd better do something and do something quickly except one company. And I will not tell you the name of that one company. Okay, I hope you guys had fun doing this. Okay, who do you want to be? I would love to be Tony Stark for a lot of reasons. Money, 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 money. Genius, 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 genius. Unlimited resource. I would love to be Tony Stark. But Caitlin pointed out something very interesting yesterday. Steve Rogers had someone to take his place. This is a spoiler alert for Endgame people. Steve Rogers had someone to take his place when he was ready to step down, right? did Iron Man. And I want to let you know that was the most heartbreaking thing I have ever experienced in my life when Iron Man died. He may be a narcissistic SOB. He may be all the bad things. However, I will not forgive them for killing him off. Because at the end, he saved the universe, right? The narcissistic, self-absorbed person who only thought about himself, at the end did the self-sacrifice to save everyone. And I'll just do a couple of sniffs there. Okay, anybody want to have any closing statements about this exercise we just went through?
I was just going to reiterate something that we talked about yesterday was, the fact that, since we're talking about Tony Stark, just like the fact that even though he was, this jerk and everybody was like, God, I hate that person, like, ugh, like so many people loved and adored him, and like they showed up at the funeral and were heartbroken. And like, if you've seen WandaVision, like, all this stuff happened as a result of that. And it's one of those, like, they weren't there because he had money. They weren't there because he had invented those things. Like, they were there because he, had changed lives, and because he'd like meant so much to so many people, despite, some of his character flaws. And I think that that's something that we've kind of talked about throughout this entire series, right? Is that you've got the agility, and you've got the leadership, and you've got the noble purpose, and you've got, all of these things that add up into being someone who's, even if you aren't aware of it at the time, making this huge difference in the lives of the people that you're interacting with. And to quote Maya Angelou, that quote that's like, people they're not going to remember what you said, they're not going to remember what you did, but they are going to remember like how you made them feel. And I feel like that's something you would never think of, but that's Iron Man. Like that's
Iron Man. You're right. You're right. Thank you. That was a very, very brilliant, I must say. That was a very insightful psychological, interpretation there. Thank you for that. Okay, so that's my session on agile leadership, and I have to give a shout out to Dr. Dwayne Pruitt in A&S, who actually teaches a course on comic books. He uses comic books for one of his courses. And of course, my son, who is a comic book aficionado from day one in his life, he learned to read so well because I let him read comic books. And he, got a 36 in reading on his ACTs because of comic books, as he points out to me all the time. Okay, so any type of questions or comments, you guys can just email me. But this is a problem that higher ed is still grappling with, okay? This problem just didn't go away because nobody has the resources to instantly change things. So what do we do in the interim is the question.
Yeah, this is a real problem that I'm sure affects so many students. And I know with my own son, that's a junior, when he's taking exams, he's like, don't come in my door, because I can't look up. And I can't even imagine the students of color, that it's affecting. So thank you for bringing this to our attention and allowing our students to, give their input on this.
I just want to give you guys a quick demo right now. You see, I have a